Welcome back to ABA Chapter Chat. Today, we're diving into pinpointing.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
pinpointing.
A foundational concept
Absolutely.
in applied behavior analysis.
It's foundational.
Yeah, it's kind of like the cornerstone of creating effective interventions, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's all about getting laser focused on those specific behaviors that we want to see change.
Yeah.
Okay. Without that clarity, any attempts to modify behavior are going to be
Right.
a little haphazard.
A bit haphazard, for sure. So for our listeners out there, we're going to break down pinpointing into those understandable chunks.
Okay.
The what, the why, and the how.
Right.
Whether you're a seasoned ABA pro or just dipping your toes into the world of behavior.
Right.
Understanding this concept can be a real game changer.
Yeah.
We'll be using some real-life examples to illustrate how pinpointing works in practice and hopefully bust some of those myths about lazy labels along the way.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah,
Stop being myths.
It can be dangerous, right?
It is.
To just put a label on someone.
Absolutely.
And not really understand the nuance of the behaviors behind it.
Yeah. One of the biggest mistakes I see people making is they're trying to change behavior without truly understanding what they're even targeting.
Okay.
So you can imagine trying to hit a bullseye with a blindfold on.
Right.
That's kind of what it's like trying to modify behavior without pinpointing.
Oh, yeah. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So let's take the blindfold off.
Okay.
What exactly is pinpointing in the context of ABA?
So pinpointing is all about being specific, incredibly specific, about the behavior that we want to see.
Okay.
So instead of using vague labels or general descriptions, we're looking for those observable, measurable actions.
Okay.
So it's about moving away from saying someone is lazy, and instead identifying those exact behaviors that are contributing to that perception.
So instead of slapping a label on someone, we're taking the time to actually observe what's going on.
Okay. Let's say we've got a manager and they're frustrated with an employee and they think that employee's lazy.
Right.
But what does that even mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Instead of getting stuck in that judgment, we could pinpoint those specific observable behaviors, like arriving late to work, taking longer breaks than they're allotted, having a disorganized workspace, or not pitching in to help their colleagues.
Yeah, those are actionable.
Those we can address.
Yeah, I think all of us have experienced being labeled unfairly.
Absolutely.
At some point, or maybe we've even been guilty of it.
Right.
Ourselves.
It's a trap.
Yeah.
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
Pinpointing helps us avoid it.
Okay.
So by focusing on those observable actions, we can start to understand the why behind the behavior.
Okay.
And that's crucial for creating those really effective interventions.
Right. And that goes back to, one of the core principles of ABA is that behavior is influenced by its consequences.
Yes.
So if we aren't clear about the specific behaviors we're targeting, how can we create consequences?
Yeah. How can we create those meaningful consequences?
To either reinforce or change them.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Without those clear pinpoints, our efforts to modify behavior are just like a guessing game.
Yeah.
We might end up reinforcing the wrong behaviors or trying to change things that aren't actually the problem.
Right.
And the consequences can be pretty significant.
Yeah. The source material even had that chilling example of Enron.
Oh, yes.
Which really highlights what can happen when we focus on the wrong things.
Exactly. They were so focused on the results.
Right.
In their case, these inflated profits, they completely overlooked all of the unethical and illegal behaviors that were driving those results. It's a stark reminder that focusing on the wrong metrics can have disastrous consequences.
Wow. That's a powerful illustration of why pinpointing is so vital for ABA professionals.
Absolutely.
By being crystal clear about those behaviors we're targeting, we can develop more effective interventions, communicate better with clients and families, and collect more accurate data.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And while pinpointing is essential in a professional context, it's a powerful tool for anyone who wants to understand and change behavior.
Okay.
Whether it's their own or others.
So we've established the why of pinpointing.
Okay.
But how do we actually go about doing it?
All right. So
what are the nuts and bolts of this process?
Before we dive into the how, I think it's important to make a distinction between behaviors and results.
Gotcha.
These are two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
And they're both really essential for effective pinpointing.
The coffee shop example in the source material really helped me grasp this distinction. The owner found $600 in receipts at the end of the day.
Okay.
That's the result, right?
Yes, but it doesn't tell us how they got there.
Okay.
Was the staff providing really efficient service?
Right.
Did they upsell effectively?
Right.
Were there any instances of theft?
Okay, so
we need to pinpoint those specific behaviors that lead to that $600.
So results give us the what, and behaviors tell us the how.
Exactly.
And we need both for a complete picture.
Precisely.
Okay.
Results provide that business case,
Okay.
the desired outcome, but it's the behaviors,
Right.
those observable actions that we can actually influence.
Okay.
So we can't directly control the outcome,
Right.
but we can change those actions that lead to it.
This makes me think about the worthy accomplishment, costly behavior
Yes.
concept that was mentioned.
Yeah.
In the source material, sometimes we value the behavior itself, even if the desired result isn't achieved.
That's a really important point.
Okay.
Especially when we're working towards those long-term goals. It's crucial to recognize and reinforce those steps along the way, even if that ultimate outcome is still out of reach.
Yeah.
Think about teaching a child to ride a bike.
Right.
You know, we praise their effort.
Yeah.
We praise their persistence, even before they can ride independently.
Right.
The behavior is valuable in and of itself.
I see.
Yeah.
So we're looking at both the behavior and the results. What makes a good pinpoint?
Okay.
What are we aiming for when we're trying to define these behaviors?
So a good pinpoint should meet a few key criteria.
Okay.
It should be measurable,
Okay.
observable, reliable,
Right.
and under the performer's control.
Okay.
So in other words, we need to be able to see it, count it, agree on what it looks like, and be confident that that person that we're working with can actually do it.
Right. That makes me think about the example from the text about friendly, courteous, and neat.
Oh, yeah.
Those are all subjective,
Interpretation.
not pinpointed behaviors.
Yeah, we might all have different ideas about what those terms mean.
Right.
But if we break them down into specific observable actions, then we create pinpoints that everyone can agree on.
Okay, so instead of saying be more friendly,
Right.
we might pinpoint behaviors like smiling at customers, greeting them by name, or asking how their day is going.
You got it.
Those are all things that we can
You can observe those.
observe and measure.
Yes,
Yeah. And that's the beauty of pinpointing,
it is.
is it moves us away from those vague interpretations
Yes.
and into the realm of objective, measurable behavior.
Absolutely.
You know, this is all starting to make sense, but before we get too deep into the specifics of writing pinpoints,
Okay.
I want to touch on something that really struck me in the source material. The power of verbal behavior.
Oh, yes.
What we say and how we say it
Absolutely.
can have a profound impact on behavior, especially for those in leadership positions.
Right.
Their words carry weight
Yes, they do.
and can really shape the entire culture of an organization.
Absolutely.
The story about the manufacturing plant manager who used his radio to constantly berate his subordinates
Oh, gosh.
really drove that point home.
Yeah, classic example of how verbal behavior can unintentionally create some negative consequences.
Right,
The managers were so afraid of being yelled at
right.
that they started avoiding communication altogether.
Wow.
They were complying,
Right.
but not truly engaged
Yeah.
or contributing.
And that's the danger of focusing solely on results.
Exactly.
The plant might have been meeting its production goals, but at what cost?
Right?
The manager's verbal behavior was eroding
Yes.
the team's morale and effectiveness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a crucial reminder that leaders need to audit their own verbal behavior.
Yes.
What are the consequences of their words on the words and actions of others?
It's all connected.
Right.
Yeah.
Are they creating a culture of collaboration and innovation?
Right.
Or one of fear and compliance?
Yeah. What are you putting out there?
It makes you wonder how often we say things without even thinking about the impact they might have on others.
I think all the time.
Right.
It's definitely something I'm trying to be more mindful of.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's about being intentional with our language and understanding the power it has to shape behavior.
I agree.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation already,
Oh, good.
but there's still so much more to unpack.
Yes.
And speaking of tools,
Yes.
let's talk about those templates for writing those effective pinpoints.
Okay.
The source material has some really helpful guidelines for both results pinpoints and behavior pinpoints.
Absolutely. Those templates are incredibly useful for making sure that you're being clear and accurate.
Right.
So for results, pinpoints, remember, we need 3 key elements.
Okay.
Direction of change,
Okay.
the units of measure, and the pinpoint itself.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that it's generally more effective to focus on increasing something.
Yeah.
Rather than decreasing or maintaining it.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely. It's a subtle shift in mindset.
Okay.
But it can be quite powerful.
Yeah.
So instead of saying reduce customer complaints, we might say increase customer satisfaction.
Okay.
It helps us focus on what we want to achieve, not just what we want to avoid.
Right. It's framing it in a positive light.
Exactly.
So then, of course, we need to specify how we're going to measure that increase.
Yes.
Is it going to be the number of positive reviews or customer retention rates or something else entirely?
Yeah. You got to choose the right unit of measure. That's critical for tracking your progress and evaluating if your interventions are effective or not.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we've got our direction of change.
Right.
We've got our units of measure.
Yeah.
What about the pinpoint itself?
Right.
What makes a strong, effective results pinpoint?
So the pinpoint should be a clear, concise statement of that desired outcome.
Okay.
And here's a little tip that often trips people up.
Okay.
You got to make sure that the words and the measure align.
Okay.
For example, if we're aiming to boost sales to new customers, our pinpoint shouldn't be increase total sales revenue.
Right.
Those are two different things.
That's a great point.
Right.
The measure needs to reflect the specific outcome we're targeting.
That's right.
So in the case of new customer sales, our pinpoint might be increase the number of new customer accounts.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's a really clear, measurable, and results-focused pinpoint.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got results pinpoints down.
Okay.
What about behavior pinpoint? They seem a little more complex.
They do have a few more components.
Okay.
But the same principles of clarity and precision apply.
Gotcha.
So for behavior pinpoints, we're looking at 4 key elements.
Okay.
Action,
Okay.
object condition,
okay,
and criterion.
Gotcha. So you emphasize that the action should always be a physical movement that can be observed.
You got to be able to see it. So something like delegate the task, that wouldn't be a good action because it's too vague and open to interpretation.
So we need to break it down into those specific observable steps.
Yes. What does delegating actually look like?
Right.
Does it involve sending an email, having a face-to-face conversation, providing written instructions?
Yeah.
We got to pinpoint those concrete actions.
Okay, so we've got our action nailed down.
Okay.
What about the object?
So the object is simply the thing being acted upon.
Okay.
So if our action is right, the object might be a report, an email, or a code module, depending on the context.
Gotcha.
Right.
And then we have condition and criterion.
Yes.
When are those elements necessary in a behavior pinpoint?
So those come into play when we need to be a little more specific about when and how the behavior should occur.
Okay.
So, for example, if we're training a new employee to answer the phone, we might include a condition like within 3 rings. So our pinpoint would be answer the phone within 3 rings.
I see.
To specify that desired time frame.
So the criterion tells us how well the behavior needs to be performed.
Yeah.
Like type 60 words per minute with 98% accuracy.
Exactly. The criterion sets the standard for successful performance.
You know, going through these templates, I'm realizing that pinpointing is really about being intentional and precise with our language.
It is.
It forces us to think critically about the behaviors we're targeting and how we're going to measure them.
That's a great observation. It's not about using jargon or technical terms. It's about clear communication and shared understanding.
Yeah, and that's why pinpointing is so crucial for that effective data collection, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to be able to track those pinpointed behaviors.
You gotta.
And see if our interventions are actually working.
Yes, and without those clear pinpoints, our data is meaningless. We're just collecting numbers without knowing what they even represent.
Right.
But when we pinpoint effectively, our data tells a story.
Okay.
It shows us what's working, what's not, and where we need to make those adjustments.
Okay, this all makes perfect sense.
Good.
From an ABA professional's perspective.
Yeah.
But how can someone who's not an ABA expert use pinpointing in their everyday life?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Pinpointing can be incredibly valuable in any area of your life where you're trying to understand and change behavior, whether it's your own or someone else's.
Like that anecdote about the woman who was convinced her husband didn't love her And it turned out that her pinpoint was.
Yeah, her pinpoint was...
He didn't say, I love you enough.
Classic example.
Yeah.
Of how pinpointing can help us cut through all that noise and get to the heart of the matter.
Right.
Instead of getting bogged down in vague interpretations and assumptions.
Right.
We can pinpoint that specific behavior that needs to change and address it directly.
I can see how this could be applied to so many different situations.
Oh, yeah.
Like parent-child relationships,
Yes.
workplace conflicts, even personal goals.
Absolutely.
That we're struggling to achieve. Pinpointing can help us create that roadmap for behavior change.
You got it.
Yeah, it's about taking control of the situation and focusing on what we can actually influence.
That's right.
It's shifting from blame and judgment to understanding and action.
I love it.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation about the power of pinpointing.
Good.
It's more than just an ABA concept.
It is.
It's a valuable tool for anyone who wants to create positive change in their life.
I completely agree. And remember, the source material highlighted that pinpointing isn't about being perfect.
Okay.
It's about being intentional.
Right.
And specific, it's a skill that takes practice.
Yeah.
But the more we use it, the better we become at identifying and changing the behaviors that matter most.
Yeah. But, beyond the technical aspects, what's really fascinating to me is the shift in perspective that pinpointing encourages.
Absolutely.
It's about moving away from those vague labels and judgments that can really cloud our understanding of behavior.
It really does.
Yeah, it's about seeing behavior for what it is.
Yeah.
Instead of observable actions.
Absolutely.
And then figuring out how we can influence those actions.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, pinpointing is really about empowerment. Yeah. It empowers us to take control of situations, to understand those factors that are driving behavior, and to make those really informed decisions about how to create positive change.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
It's not about blame or punishment.
Right.
It's about understanding and taking action.
Yes, and that's something we can all apply to our own lives regardless of professional background.
So what does all of this mean for our listeners out there?
Yeah.
How can you take these pinpointing principles and apply them to your own personal or professional goals?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Think about an area in your life where you'd like to see some improvement.
Okay.
Maybe it's a relationship that's feeling strained.
Okay.
A work project that's stalled.
Right.
Or even just a personal habit you want to change.
Yeah. And instead of getting stuck in those general labels.
Right. Like, he's inconsiderate.
Right. Or this project is a mess.
Yes. Or I'm so lazy.
Try applying that pinpointing lens.
What are those specific observable behaviors that are contributing to the situation?
Right.
What are the desired results you'd like to see?
Right.
And how can you pinpoint those results in a way that's measurable and meaningful?
It might take a little bit of practice, but the more you use it, the more natural it'll become.
Absolutely. And remember, pinpointing isn't about being perfect.
Right.
It's about being intentional and specific.
And don't be afraid to experiment. Try writing out your pinpoints.
Yeah.
Test them out.
See how they work in real life.
Right. See how they work.
Refine them.
Refine them.
As you go.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
I think you will be.
About yourself and the behaviors you're trying to change.
Oh, absolutely. This raises an important question.
Okay.
That wasn't directly addressed in the source material.
Okay.
Once you've pinpointed the behavior, what's next?
Yeah.
How do you actually go about changing it?
That's a fantastic question, and one we could probably devote a whole other episode to exploring. But for now, I'd encourage our listeners to think about the principles of reinforcement.
Okay.
And how they can be used to strengthen those desired behaviors.
Yes.
How can you create those consequences that make those behaviors more likely to occur in the future?
Yeah, and on the flip side, how can you make those undesirable behaviors less likely to occur?
Right.
What are the consequences that are currently maintaining those behaviors? And how can you change those consequences to bring about the change you want to see?
These are all great questions to ponder as you embark on your own pinpointing adventures.
Yeah.
Remember, behavior change is a journey.
It is.
Not a destination.
It's not a quick fix.
It takes time,
effort,
and a willingness to experiment.
Absolutely. But with the power of pinpointing, you have the tools to become the architect of your own behavior.
I love that.
Yes. You can identify the behaviors you want to cultivate, create those conditions that support those behaviors, and build a foundation for lasting change.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
This has been a truly enlightening conversation.
It has.
About a topic that's often misunderstood.
Yeah, it's so exciting to see people engage with these concepts and explore how they can apply them to their own lives.
And to our listeners out there.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into pinpointing.
We hope it was helpful.
We hope you gained some valuable knowledge and practical tools that you can use to create that positive change in your own life and the lives of those around you.
Remember, pinpointing is more than just an ABA technique.
Right.
It's a powerful tool for understanding and shaping behavior in all its complexity.
We encourage you to continue the conversation with us on social media.
Oh, yes.
Share your thoughts, your experiences.
Your aha moments.
Any aha moments you had during this episode.
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those pinpoints sharp.
Yes.